This is PJNET.TV, and this is my perspective and comments. In this video segment of my perspective and comments, we cover politics, society here and abroad, and the events of the day that are shaping our nation. PJNET.TV, my perspective and comment, coming to you with a worldview, one nation under God. Hello and welcome to my perspective and comments. And I want to start out, as I've mentioned before, over these last 3-4 months, coronavirus, COVID-19, Wuhan virus, as a nation, we're still dealing with it. And it started out with they were going to lock down the nation for 4 to 6 weeks, and here we are now, still in many areas, still in a sort of lockdown mode. And we're seeing, you're seeing a lot in the news being talked about now, where we're seeing spikes all over the place. What you don't hear, though, folks, is that these testing centers showing up with not 100% positives, and people have said, wait a minute, how can this be? That this is an impossibility. And is there negligence there? Is there a number that's trying to be driven? A lot of things to really do a deep dive to figure out why these numbers in some of these states like Florida and Texas, Arizona, and are showing all these high positive rates. Something isn't right, and it almost being a suspicious person, this might be a purposeful result. We're also seeing that people have done some studies, and from 2018 to now, when testing was done for the regular influenza, they were testing, I think, at total, in all those years, it was like 450,000. Within 5 months, there's been, in that same neighborhood, over 450,000 tests have been administered, plus. So we are testing more than we've done for regular influenza over a 3-year period. So the numbers are being driven, but I think there's a lot of, they're pulling out the numbers that they want to pull out. Now, with all the testing that we're seeing, that you should be hearing, wow, the death rate is well under 1%, almost negligible with all the testing that's so-called positive. The death rates are still falling. And if you were to look at what was taking place over the last 3 years, you would be for regular influenza, you would be hearing stories that was in the news that our hospitals are getting overrun with influenza, flu patients. So a lot of misinformation that's being spouted right now, and everything is COVID. We're not talking about those. There are people in the hospital right now that are there for other conditions, for surgeries, for other illnesses, cancers, a lot of different things that are bringing people into the hospital now, but everything is COVID. So, if you look cross-eyed, you might be strict with COVID. And that almost seems like what's happening. If you come into the hospital, if you walk into the hospital, you've got COVID. So, a lot of things that are going on that don't make sense when you start looking at the numbers and the science on the COVID-19 and the infection rates. I'd like to shift gears right now and talk about what's going on in our nation. You know, over this last month and a half, we've seen craziness taking place in our nation, where we had a true evil that took place here with the police putting his knee on a man's neck, and just kept it there. And the nation saw it. It was recorded, and the nation was outraged. From every sector in the nation, they came together to condemn this. But what happened? It was taken over by the mobs. It wasn't enough that America was in agreement. This is wrong and it needs to be prosecuted to the fullest. And the nation was coming together. But then you had almost as if it was a group, an organization was just waiting for an excuse to come in and riot, loot, and burn down states in our nation. And it's now becoming more clear that there's a coordination that's going on here. And I want to talk about Black Lives Matter. And, sounds good. Black Lives Matter, of course, Black Lives Matter. But don't you dare say all lives matter, or you'll have the social media mob coming after you, and you'll get fired if you say it in a certain work environments. But that's what needs to be taken a look at it, and people are starting to wake up now. Black Lives Matter. If you look look under the hood and see who's running Black Lives Matter and what some of the leaders are saying and where some of the leaders have come from, and they're acknowledging they're fascists, and they've been taught communist ways, and have been taught to hate police, and these are our leaders. In fact, we had one spokesman, Black Lives Matter, that says, if we don't get what we want, we're going to burn this system down, and you can take that any way you want to take it. So threatening, and hey, I know what he was saying. They'll do whatever. If it takes burning down buildings, rioting, looting, and hurting people, that's what they'll do. That's Black Lives Matter. And, I think that those that are truly going out and wanting to protest don't do it under that banner, because it's rotten. And if you look at their mission statement and look at what they believe, they want to tear down America. They want to tear down the family, the traditional family, and they want to go after the police. And really, they don't only want to defund the police; they want to remove the police and replace them altogether. That's the agenda that these communists are looking to accomplish, and that's the agenda of Black Lives Matter. And more and more people are starting to realize that this organization, one, is not even run by black people. It's run by the Soroses of the world. And you see all these white kids running around here breaking things and pulling statues down in the name of Black Lives Matter. And when you talk about statues, Martin Luther King, Frederick Douglass, they aren't even safe to these mob thugs that are out there pulling down statues. They're just ripping down. If they see a statue, tear it down. It's got to be bad. And that's a message that's going out now. This is a racist nation. It was built on racism, and we have to tear everything down. And that's what this Black Lives spokesman was saying. Just burn it all down. It was built on flawed racism. This nation was built, and that's why they want to go after every aspect, including the family, including our churches. And we see the attacks right now, more and more against our churches, against our police. They want to tear down and destroy our police. Just this past day, we had police being attacked in New York City. And that's what happens when you have rotten leadership like de Blasio in New York, who's given basically a wink wink and a nod nod to these rioters and terrorists that are in his city right now. But that's the agenda. That's the agenda of the communist is, tear down everything, tear down any semblance of this nation and how this nation was built, and defame everything that the United States stands for. And that's the attack. It's an attack. It's a coordinated attack against America and Americans. And if you, the traditional family, the husband, wife, and children, Black Lives Matter want to tear that down. Because they say that it's built, that the family structure is somehow built on a white, the white structure, and it's wrong. So we are being attacked, and we're being attacked from within, from monies from outside the country also. And it's really, they're not even hiding anymore. They're just coming right out and saying who they are and what their agenda is. And I believe, and when you have Joe Biden waking up for a stint to say something, I mean, he has as much said that he's for what Black Lives Matter has been pushing, and he hasn't totally said no to defunding the police. I think he's left the door open, and he kind of used some nuanced statement on, maybe curtailing some of the police activities. But he's in the corner of this hate America group, Black Lives Matter. And that's what we see loud and clear coming out of that organization's mouth and their actions to hurt people, destroy America, and any resemblance of those founders that helped establish our nation, and the laws that they have put together to have a solid and healthy nation, one that you have people coming from all over the world clamoring to get in the United States, and we have this evil that's coming and saying, America, everything about America is evil and racist, and this systemic racism that's started right from the beginning of this nation being built, and that's a lie. That's a lie. And there needs to be more voices to raise their voices and with disagreement and forcefully disagree with that lying narrative that they're pushing. I want to kind of swerve right into this because Black Lives Matter does it, but you may have heard the word social justice warriors, or the cancel culture, and that's what we have right now. And I'm just going to hit on a few right now that I'm going to start with in the music realm. Well, folks, the Dixie Chicks are gone. No more. No more. If you're looking for Dixie Chicks, you're not going to find them on the concert. Now they're the Chicks. Dixie just didn't cut it with some of these social justice warriors. So now we have the Chicks. One other one. Lady Antebellum. No more. Gone. Social justice warriors couldn't have that. So now they're Lady A. And when they said, "Oh yeah, we're changing our name to Lady A," they ran into a little bobble here because there was already a Lady A. There was a blues singer, I believe, and there was a little back and forth, and I guess she said, "Oh, okay, go right ahead. You can take that name or use that name." So we see here again, and we're seeing it in sports, and as I've talked about Drew Brees, talking about, standing for the flag and standing for his grandparents. And he was forced to take a knee and say he was sorry and apologize. Even had his wife come out and say a few laps around the bending knee pole for ask to forgiveness. And then you have some of his players and others on the NBA that also joined into the condemning Drew Brees. So we see that they're going, they want to, if it doesn't fit with their narrative, if it doesn't fit with what they want to promote, and if the word doesn't line up with what they want, it's got to go. Also, we saw and we talked about the food industry. And I want to say also that it's not just these musicians and actors, actresses, and but there's also the corporate sponsors. Companies, corporations like Amazon and even Walmart's. A lot of these corporate giants are joining the Black Lives Matter and these cancel culture warriors. So another industry, the food industry, and we talked about this before, Aunt Jemima, Uncle Ben's, and another one, I'm not sure if we mentioned this one, but Land O'Lakes, the Land O'Lakes pulled the image off their packaging from a Native American woman that was on that packaging. They pulled that off so quicker than you could say Pocahontas. These corporations were deleting that. We also right now it looks like talk about sports. Another area, our sporting industry, Washington Redskins, looks like no more. They're gone. No more Washington Redskins. I guess they're hinting that there's going to be some announcement on a new name. I might give them a suggestion. Maybe the Washington Snowflakes. Or maybe the Washington Scaredy Cats. I don't know, the Washington Wimps maybe, that might fit. But here again, these social justice warriors will go in and bully, and if they can get you fired, they will. And one of the liberal papers, the New York Times was in the news. A editor has resigned because she dared to try and be in the middle of the road, or when they come up with their articles, writing in their paper, that it's not all, there is some real journalism where it can't be far left. That's all you're going to put out. And that really is what the New York Times is all about. It's leftist, far leftist, and that's all they're writing for. And we see that in the Washington Post. another area, CNN's, MSNBC. The farther left you go, the better. And if you have any other dissenting or a differing opinion, then you are demonized. And she was getting, they were calling her every name in the book, a racist, and you name it. And the ironic thing is, she was a lefty. I mean, she was left. And that was her leaning. But if you don't kowtow to the mob, and that's what they have in the New York Times right now, and those writers, so-called journalists, they're a mob. They have one agenda. It's left, far left, and that's it. They don't want to hear any other opinions, or they don't want to hear any other writings. In fact, it was that particular department, Tom Cotton had wrote an op-ed, and that couldn't stand, because the person that was in that editorial position 5 months ago was fired because he allowed Tom Cotton, a senator, to write an op-ed, and they didn't like what he was talking about, so they got rid of that editor. So we see the intolerance of many in the left, and we see these businesses that seem to be embracing these far left socialist / communist groups. And even to Smithsonian Institute this week had this pamphlet that they put out that was talking about white privilege, what white privilege was, and a negative connotation of a work ethic, a family, having a family, a cohesive family, being the virtues of hard work and getting out and providing for yourself. All those were things that were demeaned and put down as being white privilege. Our Western civilization is what they were putting down. And that's what we're seeing is these groups, like Black Lives Matter, are pushing anything that has to do with the strengthening of our nation, what keeps our nation glued together, strong, and moving forward. In our churches, strong churches, strong families. That can't be. No, that has to be torn down. And then people wonder why this nation is struggling. People are wondering why we have kids that are out of control, and the crime rate going up. And over the last 2 months, the crime rate has been going out of control. And another thing too that you don't hear in the news, but gun sales are going up exponentially. In fact, what they're saying right now is people that have never owned a gun before are now seeing what's going on in the streets, and they're getting, they're purchasing. Because right now we are seeing a nation that is getting to the point where it's Wild West, it's lawlessness. And I think this is an area where I think we need to, President Trump will need to, there's definitely a campaign message here, that you've got Joe Biden on the left, that, hey, anything goes. Crime rate, that they're not law and order. In fact, they embrace the anarchy and the crime and the looting and rioting, almost promoting it, the left. Especially when they look at the majority, 99%, 99.9% of the governors and the mayors in those areas that we've seen rampant crime and looting and hurting people, killing people, are Democrat run. So definitely this can be a campaign message for Donald Trump. And I think, we keep hearing a lot about these polls, but I think when it comes down to that message, that Joe Biden isn't going to keep you safe. And I think that the President Trump is going to be doing over the next month or two. We're seeing right now Portland is looking to be an autonomous zone. And I think that President Trump is going to deal with some of these high crime areas like Portland, like New York City, and what de Blasio is doing. Another campaign strength, I believe, and it is going to hinge for President Trump, is what is going to be taking place over the next 2 months here, folks. Getting our kids back in school. And this definitely could be a fight. And because we're already seeing here in New York, the governor says, well, show me the plans and we'll look at them and we'll add our stamp of approval. And the science, the professionals are saying that our kids are not, they don't transmit that. So, teachers don't have to worry. And that these kids don't need to wear masks. And they're already talking about kids being in school, that they're playing with their ears and eyes, and they'll be pulling on this mask, and it's going to be a joke. And if they try and go down that road, then a lot of these governors are going to say, no, we can't do it, shut it down, we're closing the schools. And that's what I believe is going to be the challenge for President Trump. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. These schools need to be open. There's enough science right now that are showing that these kids, one, they need to get back. Many kids right now are suffering at home. A lot of hearing a lot of things that are negative, child abuse. And kids getting hurt because they're home and they're not in school. And also parents that are out of work right now, contributing to some of the difficulties that are being reported in the home. So President Trump and his leadership will be needed to push the issue and say we are going to have our kids back in school. Now, what the left is going to try and do is, we'll have them come back for 1 day and then we'll have them online learning for 2 days. And no, they need to get our kids back to school for the week, 5 days, and have our schools opened. They're already talking about the what's been lost by not getting back. Our children are losing so much ground in keeping up with their studies. So we'll keep on top of that, folks, and keep our eye open to what President Trump is going to be doing here in the next couple of months. Hey, we're only talking about 4 months here, and we're going to be having the election. So we'll be watching at this point. But there are some things right now. I think some areas, the law and order president is will be a big strength for President Trump, and how successfully he gets our schools back open again and get some sort of normalcy for our nation. And that it will be a big step, because having our kids back in school will also allow the parents to be able to really get back to work, and that will help the nation, obviously, to get our economy back humming again. So we'll see. Be watching some of the steps that are being made and what President Trump is talking about when it comes to our schools and our kids in learning. And we're seeing right now some evidence that some colleges are trying to open up to to get their kids back in school, and we'll see if they have sports that are opening up in our colleges. And that's still an up in the air, state by state situation when it comes to our colleges opening up for in-class and none of this distance learning. I'm seeing here in New York, we're seeing Syracuse Universities, looks like they're going to be, they've got a game plan to bring their students in and have actual in-class instruction. So we'll keep watching and keep you updated on the latest on the continuing effort to get our nation back to normal. And folks, I'd like to switch gears here now and just take a look at what we've seen over the last several plus years. And I want to take a look at what we went through with in the Obama Biden era, and what we saw with the battle that we were facing with ISIS. And when you saw the pictures of the beheadings and the total depravity that we were that was being exhibited over in the battle zones there in Iraq, Syria, and we did those beheadings and the sheer evil that was taking place, statues getting pulled down there in ISIS, and we had a administration that was basically treading water, and America was in this long back and forth battle in ISIS, and they were growing, and they had a stronghold that was taking place. And during that time, we heard messages from Obama and Biden that the new normal in our economy, and we just had to get used to that new normal. Where businesses were, many businesses that had left the country, and Obama said that they would never come back. We saw the sheer movement of in battle against the family. And if we take a look right now over this past even in 2019, the spring of 2019, we've been seeing, and throughout the year of 2019, we've been seeing the movement of legislation against the unborn, and we even have seen legislation that to have the ability that a woman would go in, and even after birth, there was legislation that was out there. As a matter of fact, we saw in the halls of the legislature in New York, Albany, New York, a round of cheers after New York State passed the most egregious abortion legislation, where a doctor could kill a baby even after birth. And they cheered in the halls in New York. So we look around here, and we've seen, we as I said, we saw ISIS in the battles there. We saw terrorism throughout the globe. And I'm thinking, folks, looking at this and seeing what's happened then and what's happening right in 2020, and you say, how can this be? How can just over the last 4 months we've seen so much that's happened, and now we have statues being torn down, and we see this never-ending unrest, and we're seeing our police officers being injured and killed in our nation. And I look back and say, how has this spurred up so quickly? And we're seeing it right now. So I'd like to have us take a look at a scripture. In this time that we could get discouraged to see the evil that's taking place, and how people, are basically looking at good is evil and evil is good, and wonder how we got here. So I'd like us to take a look at a scripture in Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this age, against spiritual hosts of wickedness in the heavenly places. So as we look at Ephesians 6, we know that we are in a battle. And when we look at, when the generals get together, they look at, okay, we're in a battle. How are we going to deal in this battle? We know that the enemy wants to tear down and take as many people to hell as he can. And we're seeing all this foment and people rising up with these ways that they want to force you to live, and to change what has been the bedrock of our nation here. And that's why we're seeing these statues being toppled down, and the bedrock of our nation, our families, are under attack. So realizing, knowing what enemy we're fighting against, as I mentioned earlier, how can this be? How could this happen? And again, we're not wrestling against the flesh and blood, but there's a spiritual battle that's going on out there, folks. And we need to realize that. And as we've seen in Ephesians, God tells us that we need to put on that full armor of God, that we can stand in this day. So I want us to realize that yes, what we see going on here, to many would say it doesn't make sense. And it's happening globally. It's happening worldwide. Every nation is embroiled in this. We want to keep our leaders in prayer. We have just under 4 months that there's going to be an election, and we want to keep our leaders and keep our president in prayer at this time. We know, and we've said here on PJNET TV, that we know how this story ends. We know that God won't be mocked. There's coming a day that he's coming back for his church. He's coming back for those that have said yes to his provision, and coming back, knowing that he's coming back for that church and for all those that have given their life and said yes to Jesus and accepted the sacrifice to save us from our sins. But we're living in this world right now, folks, that we're in this battle. So we want to stay prayed up. We want to keep in the Word. We want to keep those that are struggling right now, help out where we can, and give a good word, give an uplifting word to those that might be struggling. And that's why I pray, and we've heard over this past week, the movements of PJNET TV to reach out to with good news, with uplifting messages and answers to many of these things that we're seeing in our nation now that are troubling. We have hope that is in us, that there is all is not lost. And if you watch the TV, watch the news, you might get that view. But we know God is on the throne. We're in a battle, and God is God's won't be mocked, and we know that He has put us here to be light and to let that light shine. And as I've mentioned before here, that on perspectives, that where we have influence, the people that you come in contact with, that you're out and about and talking with, you bring a good news, bring a good word, an encouraging word that would lift up that one that might be struggling right now. Because as I've mentioned before here, earlier in this video, that gun sales are going up. People are scared. They're looking at what's taking place in the streets, the anger and hate, and the stirring up in this nation, and they're frightful. And this enemy, Satan, is out there, and he is roaring, and he wants to take down as many as to the pit of hell with him. But we have good news. We can be that light and that comfort and that oasis for many people that might feel that they're out in the desert all alone, but they aren't. And God is on the throne, and you and I can be that word of encouragement and uplifting, uplifting those that we come in contact with, and uplifting one another. And important to remember, we see that the evil that's out there. We realize that it's the enemy. It's that spiritual battle that's taking place. So remember that, folks. Keep our nation, our leaders, those in our church leaders lifted up in prayer, and to realize that the King of Kings and Lord of Lords is there with us, and we need to draw close to Him. And that's my perspective and comments.